We are calling to order the work session special meeting for the Board of Education for Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. And we are making sure we have a quorum, which we do. And we will start with introductions of guests. And I will start in the back.
I'm Richard Plott, the CIO.
I'm Cass Sinclair, Executive Director, Road Community College Foundation.
Okay, that's what you're choosing to do.
Excellent.
Kelly Gonzalez, outgoing Director of Marketing and Communications.
I'm Mohammed, Executive Director of Institutional Effectiveness and Planning.
Tiffany Malsberger, Director of Admissions and Recruitment.
Rusty Reese, Dean, Health and Education.
Nicole Secreta, Dean of Enrollment Management.
Mike Pollock, Chief Financial Officer.
Lisa Stanton, Vice President of Operations and Finance.
Decide what you want to be today.
It's been a hard week, apparently.
I'm not CFO.
David Kohler, Vice President, Student Learning Success.
Jamie Harrington, Vice President of People, Culture, and Safety.
Lucia Barcher, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer.
Welcome. Thank you all for being here today. Anything you want to lead with before I turn it over to our presenters?
Well, I think maybe just, I don't want to give any signaling that this could be a shorter meeting because that's always scary. But we're going to shift from 2 to 1 agenda item today. The second agenda item around transportation technology project. We're still doing some behind the scenes work on and hope to bring that to the board next month. But we're trying to squeeze it in and we're just not quite ready for that. Greg's done some great work putting it together. But so with that, I think we're at our one.
All right. Turning it over to the two of you.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Thank you, Dr. Weber, Chair Jones, and members of the board for having us today. I'm glad to be here with updates on RCC's compliance with ORS 350375. You've all received a copy of our formal report in your packets, and today I'd like to highlight a few notable items since our last report was March 2025. Before we dive in, okay, I have to do that now. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that RCC campuses are located within the ancestral homelands of the Shasta, Tacoma, and Lagala peoples who have lived here since time immemorial. You may recognize those words from the land acknowledgement we adopted by our relationship with SOU to honor the Indigenous people who were here first, as well as their descendants who contribute to the cultural richness of our community. This is an invitation for us all to learn more about the history of our local tribes and Native Americans. Some background on the legislation. In 2017, the state of Oregon passed House Bill 2864, requiring institutions of higher ed to report on the processes established around cultural competency standards for their employees and for their institutions. That was codified into law as ORS 350375. As defined by the statute, cultural competency is an understanding of how institutions and individuals can respond respectfully to people of all cultures, economic status, language backgrounds, race or ethnic backgrounds, disabilities, religions, genders, veteran status, and other characteristics in a manner that recognizes, affirms, and values their worth and preserves their dignity. So what is culture? As we can see here, these are just a few examples of the different ways that culture shows up in our society. Simply put, it's the shared set of attitudes, values, social norms, and practices that characterize a group or institution. In systems, this can show up as policies, procedures, and laws that affect how we live, learn, work, and what we prioritize. Culture is everywhere, from our family's dining room table all the way to the highest levels of government, business, and industry. One example here that comes up in our work with first-generation students is the concept of a college-going culture. So that's an awareness that some family norms where higher education was not prioritized for many reasons, and therefore it can affect a student's ability to see themselves as college material. At RCC, our commitment to cultural competency starts with our strategic plan, with core values and wildly important goals rooted in equity, access, and inclusion, with a focus on creating a welcoming, respectful, and safe environment which engages all individuals' beliefs and ideas fairly. That's a really high bar. Our board policy 7100 also affirms the college's commitment to an inclusive climate for students, faculty, and staff. Cultural competency is one component of that effort in that it requires consideration of diverse perspectives and voices to achieve that high bar of mutual respect and understanding. So what does cultural competency look like on campus? Here's one example from a former Rogue athlete who says he chose RCC in part because of the culture of the athletics department. It's important to remember that our students are our best recruiters. In fact, just this morning, I was at a dentist appointment and the hygienist was an RCC graduate. And while they were working on my teeth, they were regaling me with all the different reasons why they love RCC. And one of those reasons was good vibes. So I have a Gen Z at home, and so that translates as the culture. So just a real world example just from this morning. This is an appreciation slide. One of the projects I'm most proud of this year is our student experience survey. This student survey is what colleges also refer to as a campus climate survey. And at RCC, it's a collaboration between the DEI Council and institutional research. And I wanted to take a moment to shout out the members of the DEI Council, who not only helped with the wording of the survey instrument, but also served as liaisons by connecting key stakeholder groups for feedback, or connecting with, excuse me, for those groups, including faculty, ASG, and the textbook affordability. I also want to personally thank Issam for his support of this project and for advocating for the upgrade to the Qualtrics survey platform. This really improved the user experience, including compliance with the new digital accessibility standards, mobile device compatibility, and new language options. So for the first time, we were able to offer, to give users the option to take the survey in Spanish, and we hope to be able to expand to other languages in the future. And a huge thanks to the IR team, particularly Sarah Crown and James Robinson for their hard work on this project. Thank you also to the foundation for providing an awesome incentive, and to marketing for helping with the materials and getting the word out. And lastly, thanks to Jamie for your support, institutional perspective, and much needed help with messaging. So national surveys such as Sense and CESI help us benchmark the entry experience and student engagement against peer institutions. Our student experience survey serves a different purpose. It focuses specifically on campus culture, student sense of belonging, access to resources, and the way students experience the RCC environment. So what do we mean by a sense of belonging? Simply put, belonging is the extent to which people feel part of a larger whole in a group setting. It's a metric by which we measure inclusion. So this survey was open to all RCC students from April 13th to May 1st. We had 384 participants. Oops, that's the slide. Yeah. We had 384 participants plus 72 unfinished surveys that will provide partial data. The survey was anonymous and confidential, and all questions were optional. And the survey link was emailed directly to each student. We also collaborated with some faculty members who put the link in their Blackboard course and encouraged students to participate. Data collection wrapped up on May 1st, and during summer term, we'll work on the data analysis with the goal to share our findings with our community by fall term. That said, we do have a few points of preliminary data to share, and it's a great example of what we mean by belonging. So the first 2 points on the slide are about how being a student, or specifically an RCC student, affects their respondents' sense of identity. So one of the challenges we talk about at non-residential community colleges is typically lower student engagement. The idea of a commuter campus, just get in, get out, which is much needed as well. But you see here a clear connection to our vision of being a college that inspires and transforms. The last data point is what we refer to as a net promoter score. So I would recommend RCC to my friends and family. A whopping 88% of respondents somewhat or strongly agree with that statement. That signals a very strong sense of trust and confidence in the institution. In my role as lead Title IX coordinator, I have a unique perspective on our campus culture. And I think deeply about the ways that we can make our campus more inclusive, particularly in programs that have been more historically gender coded, such as nursing or automotive. It's true that cultural shift happens most effectively through policies, but also through interpersonal connections, and most of all through collaboration. There's a lot of equity work at the college that requires cross-departmental collaboration. For example, in Title IX, there's often overlap in case management between myself, student conduct, risk management, counseling. I'm so grateful to have trusted colleagues such as Joseph Moore and Sean Taggart to do this work. I also wanted to give a shout out to Nicole Secreta and her team, particularly Holly Adair and Tiffany Malsberger, for their outreach and support to our Hispanic and Latinx student population. You can see in our report the latest updates on that work. And speaking of collaboration, I borrowed my heading here from a recent article about employee connectedness that our very own Jamie Harrington wrote for the League of Innovation, which prompted calls from the Chronicle of Higher Ed and Modern Think. So I'll let her take it from here.
Thanks, Lucia. One of the key messages that we wanted to make sure to share today is that building a welcoming, inclusive, and connected college culture is not the responsibility of just one office or position. It really does take a campus. And so while there are some formal groups that are dedicated to this work, like the DEI Council that's mentioned in the report and that Lucy has talked about here, there's also been really meaningful progress across the institution in really integrated and innovative ways around this work. So one example that I've talked about at board before is our College Council and the way that our shared governance structures help to ensure that employees across the college have a voice in institutional dialogue and decision-making. Another example is our marketing and communications team. They play an important role in helping to shape culture through storytelling, representation, transparency, and the ways that we communicate who we are as an institution, both internally to our employees and our students and to the community. Our Accessibility Council continues to advance conversations and practices around equity, access, and inclusion, helping us to think more intentionally about student and employee experiences, particularly currently in the digital space. Through other groups like our Professional Development Council and the Teaching and Learning Center, we are creating opportunities for ongoing learning and growth, whether that's training or direct faculty support, internal conversations to help us be better leaders, educators, and partners, or through campus-wide professional development experiences that are helping to strengthen belonging and engagement, whether we're talking about employees, students, or students and employees together. And of course, this work also shows up in those day-to-day interactions across departments and in classrooms and in committees and through our services. Culture really is shaped not just through the policies and the programs, but also through how people treat one another and experience RCC every day. This is very deeply connected to our institutional priorities. So if you think about employee connectedness, as Lucia mentioned, but also really at the heart of student success and even our community partnerships, creating a culture where people feel valued and supported and included is foundational to achieving all of those goals.
Thank you. I just love those pictures. Yeah, the track.
Suited up for in-service.
Were legendary. In addition to our work here at home, our relationships with state and national organizations are crucial to provide perspective on different approaches to cultural competency and best practices on relevant issues, policies, and equity gaps. Jamie has been serving on the Coupa HR's Creative Inclusive Community Steering Committee, and I serve on the OCCA DEI Committee, which is chaired by Dr. Paul Jarrell from Tillamook Bay Community College. This year, I was also invited to join Dean Secreta on the Oregon Hispanic Serving Institution Consortium, which was formed by the HEC as a statewide collaborative of colleges and universities working to improve how institutions serve Latinx students and all students. During this time of fast-paced change at the federal level over the past year, we've been able to leverage those relationships to bring back to our campuses legal analysis, state guidance, and most importantly, reassurance that RCC is compliant and that our commitment to student success has not changed. So Jamie and I have spent time presenting at many groups around the college and at OCCA as well. For example, Jamie and I presented at the Teaching and Learning in-Service about the changes at the Department of Education. And I also presented for other campus groups, including ASG, Faculty Senate, and management team, providing, sort of the latest updates on these fast-moving changes. In addition to that, part of, my role with Diversity Programming Board is also partnering with ASG on civic engagement and, finding ways that we can support them to fulfill their duties as leaders and also understand the policies that as student leaders that they should be aware of regarding academic freedom and especially expressive conduct on campus. So working with our risk management team to do orientations for them on that as well. So that, is part of our culture of just, sort of instilling that in our student population that, we want them to be engaged. And so last but not least, Diversity Programming Board is our most visible effort on cultural competency that you might have heard of. So these are some examples of some of the events that we have led or supported over the last year. What I love about these events is that a lot of times we're connecting our students and our community with their own community, because people often will say, oh, I didn't know about this group or this effort that was happening like right in our town. And so it's really pleasing to me to be that liaison to connect people and just make them aware of all the wonderful things that are happening in our community, and also to give folks an opportunity to participate in something that might expand their horizons or open up a conversation about something that, they may not have considered before. So just different perspectives. Here are just a couple of quotes that we've received in our feedback surveys for our diversity programming events. That kind of show that idea of how folks can connect with their own community, or giving folks a different perspective so they can experience the world. And so that wraps it up, but I would like to end with an invitation to join our common read for 2026-27. So I'll have a handout in the back with a QR code if you're interested in joining. It's really interesting because so typically Diversity Programming Board comes up with a list of books to decide on, what we may want to read this year, taking into account many factors. And sometimes it's just what people are talking about. This one really stood out for me personally because of the fact that, it's about homelessness, which is a big problem in many places, but in Grants Pass specifically, we went all the way to the Supreme Court about that topic. And so I thought it would, really resonate with our community. And then later on, as I was researching the book, I learned that there are some amazing things happening, kind of similar to what this book talks about, with medical professionals just kind of taking it upon themselves to care for those in the community. And that's actually happening right now in Grants Pass. So I thought that this would really resonate with the group, and we talked about it, and that was our chosen book. So that's about all we have, but we welcome any questions on the presentation or the report or anything else you might be wondering about.
Couldn't tell if the people on Zoom.
Oh, yeah, we have.
Where's Pat? Okay. From the board, any questions about the report that we read? Getting ready for your presentation, which thank you so much. That was very informative.
Just a quick question. The book, do you have a discussion group on that? Or is that the way that works?
Yeah, so typically, we kind of put feelers out during this time of year, and then to get an idea of how many books we want to get. And then we have some sort of event. Usually it's a courageous conversation. But we do it in a way like thematically so that you don't have to have read the book to come to the program, because there's overarching themes that we can talk about. So yeah, typically there is not exactly a book group, but a discussion on the themes.
You involve the staff and students, I assume, in that?
Yes, whoever signs up. So we have an option on the thing that says, like, even if you already have the book, go ahead and sign up, because then we'll include you in all the communications. And then we also post it on like our website and on the road report and sort of flyers, so we get it out to the community.
Have you done a one book read before, or has it been? I thought so. I just.
Yeah, we've done it the past like 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Yeah. So I just was, my brain was trying to remember which ones they've been the last couple.
And I have to say, I especially enjoyed a couple of years ago a read. I was struggling to get through reading it, and somebody in the room suggested it's a really good listen from the, and it was our Monica Guzman.
Oh,
her,
she's fantastic.
yeah, her. I never thought of it that way. She's Braver Angels, and that was a great audiobook. So if you're wondering, how often do I have to sit down and read? Encourage you could do it as an audiobook too to join the conversation.
Yeah.
It was much easier to listen to than to write. I get Paul. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
Put me to peace, but
Yeah, it's wonderful. That page turner.
There was we're reading that book, and then I got to meet her.
Yes.
at the
Oh,
conference and have a
excellent.
conversation with her. And
Okay. Yes, love audiobooks. Big fan.
So,
Gary?
yeah, quick question. I know we've come a long way in public education where we wanted at one time to make everyone the same. And we took the immigrant populations and said, now we're going to assimilate you, and we want you to do it this way. Or we want you to be American, for these to look like this. And now we've done a really wonderful job of celebrating and recognizing the richness of this fabric of people being different and having different belief systems and views and languages and so on. Can you imagine a time when this work might be sunsetted, so we kind of evolved to where we sort of arrived?
That is a long-term goal. I think there are many factors to that. Social norms are really persistent, generational factors as well. I'm a big believer that, you can have personal growth at any age, but we are up against certain things. And even in my generation, there are really different lived experiences. Like I moved to the mainland US when I was 7 years old. I learned English over the summer watching MTV, yada, yada, yada. My friend had a completely different experience in Texas where her mom used to be locked in a closet for speaking Spanish at school. And so she never taught her Spanish. So even in the same generation, just that outlook. And so some of those old attitudes are still with us, but I'm really confident. And one of the things about it is like social media, the internet, for all of its ills, we can see what life is like for anybody anywhere in the world, right? So that normalizes different cultures, and also like foodie culture, like it just spreads. So I think we're getting there, and I would love to imagine that world, but we still have a lot of work to do.
And I want to take this opportunity to applaud Lucia and Jamie, and I know Jamie would give a lot of attention to Lucia, because sometimes this work can be a very sensitive and difficult topic on a lot of college campuses. And, I literally, one of the advantages we have to talk about some of the statewide stuff we do. I literally have colleagues across the state say, I met your DEI coordinator, cultural competency. She's amazing. And what Lucia does really well is make sure that our conversations on our campuses are relevant to our communities. So to your question, Gary, I don't see a time when the work will go away, but what the work will look like, it might transition. So we're always going to have, as long as we're an open access institution, diverse cultures coming here. We're going to have rural students. We're going to have students from larger schools. We're going to have folks from naturally more traditional cultural backgrounds. We were talking with a space facility planning group yesterday, and one of them talked about at a college campus where they were doing some design work, and they had students who came in directly from work with grease on their boots and dirty outfits, and the furniture didn't make them feel like they wanted to sit down because they didn't feel like they belonged on campus. It's like, that's a working student. Do I belong on a campus? That's a cultural issue.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of things we're going to have on our campuses, being open to everybody. It's just, and that's where Lucia does such a great job, was what are the things on our campus that are important. So we're talking about Unhoused next year. The book we just referenced was about, civil discourse. Those are cultural challenges we face in society. So I'm confident that she and the diversity programming board will continue to find programming that is relevant to our community, to make sure that whatever walk of life somebody comes from, there's an intentionality for me to feel like I belong at RCC.
I really appreciate the intentionality of listening to student voice and their lived experiences and letting that sort of feed into what the needs are. To me, that's so important in any institution of higher learning, to make sure that we are listening to that diverse population. Because like you said, everybody's lived experience brings their own set of challenges to them. And so that's something, as I always read through the supplemental board packet and all the pictures and these events and those events, and I just appreciate that there's a way for students to have their voice be heard.
We talked about disaggregated data at the board's most recent retreat, and in its purest form, that's what we're looking at. Who are our students? What are the ways in which we can pull them apart and say, okay, how are they performing, and at what level is coming to us? How are they performing? How might they be different, with the outcomes? Is it SES? Is it rural versus less rural? Is it program of study? Is it online versus in person? So then we can look and say, well, we're seeing inconsistent outcomes for these students in these situations. What might we do about it? Because our goal is for every student to be able to reach their education goal. And, you know, it requires a student to put forth their effort. But shame on us if we're not looking at ways that our processes might unintentionally be getting in the way and we could do better.
Maria, I see your hand up.
Thank you all. I just wanted to say to Lucia and Jamie how I appreciate the lens of belonging that you're using. I think that is a perfect way to open the conversation about people's differences and you know their circumstances, their experiences, all of the things that make us who we are unique. And the frame of belonging, I think, allows space for all of that without getting really caught up in the animus that surrounds conversations about EDI or DEI, whatever you have you. So I really do appreciate the lens because that gets to what we're trying to accomplish for our students to feel like they belong at RCC. So good on you. Thank you for that.
One of the things I wrote down was civil engagement. I think that's something that's not thought well, but I appreciate the framing around those conversations and how to be civilly engaged in that discourse versus uncivilly engaged in that same discourse. So I do appreciate the thought behind that programming that you guys are putting together.
Yeah, one of the best tools from the Monica Guzman book, when having those conversations is just the question, how did you arrive at that belief, right? Like that just opens everything up because what happens is you personalize things and then all of a sudden it changes the way that people are approaching that conversation instead of just like throwing statistics at you or those kinds of things like, well, it's personal to me because this happened.
Other questions or comments? You know that you're only supposed to give this to us every other year.
Yes, I don't think I would want to wait 2 years to gush about my colleagues.
Really good things going on.
Thank you.
Any questions for item on our agenda? Something you want to?
I think we may, oh, no, we'll be okay. We had a discussion around adding a new business item around transportation technology, but we did it. So we'll.
There's one on K.
Where we at?
Turn over. We added it in the back.
Oh, it is,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that we'll be able, when we open the meeting, we probably remove that item.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Okay.
Or no?
Item
Is that-
K.
That item?
8K.
Okay.
Item 8K.
Right.
Yep, maybe.
I thought it was
We
associated.
have time to think about it before we start our meeting at 5, and then you and I can.
I thought that was a.
We'll huddle up
That's what I-
and be, and,
Okay.
and either make a recommendation at the beginning of the meeting or not.
Okay,
Stay
sounds.
tuned.
All right. With that, we are adjourned.
So
until our
exciting.
regular meeting.
Right, we don't have we wouldn't have the.